Hello again. This week's Parsha, Parshas Bo, which recounts the last three plagues that occurred in Egypt, which was locusts, darkness, and the smiting of the firstborn, also tells us that we have a mitzvah to do Seder night, to read the Haggadahs with our families and friends, and to go over the entire Seder. It says it in two places. First of all, it says in chapter 13, verse 8, it says, you should tell your sons on that day, because of this, we were redeemed from Egypt. That's one place, and that's the mitzvah to do Seder night, and to tell our kids and ourselves the story of Pesach. But in another place, in the very beginning of this week's Parsha, it says, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, Leman tesaper ba'azne bincha uvenei bincha, which means you should state in the ears of your children and grandchildren. And what does that mean that you should state in the ears? Why does it have to say the ears? You should relate. We know how you relate something. What does it mean you should relate in the ears of your children and grandchildren? It means that you have to relate the message of the Exodus of Egypt to your children and grandchildren always in a way that they can hear it, that it goes in their ears, that it penetrates. That means to say that it has to be not only just by rote, but it has to be an emotional, spiritual, uplifting message. And the sages tell us that that message can only be one in which we have inculcated ourselves also. And what is that message? What is the message that we're trying to get across to our children, our grandchildren, and ultimately that we must possess first in order to relate it into the ears, in order to make it an emotional and a meaningful message to our children? And that message is the following. You know, almost everything that in many of our mitzvahs that we do, we always have a Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim means a remembrance to the Exodus of Egypt. A lot of things that we do that you'd least expect. Friday night dinner, when we make Kiddush, we mention Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, which means a remembrance to the Exodus of Egypt. What does Friday night Kiddush have to do with the Exodus of Egypt? It has to do with the creation of the world. So why do we mention in many of our mitzvot Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, a remembrance to the Exodus of Egypt? Says Nachmanides, the reason is because Hashem revealed himself to us, that he cares about us and that he's in our world, and that he will take care of us with these 10 plagues and the entire Exodus of Egypt, going through the splitting of the sea and everything that happened there. That is our main faith of Hashem, that Hashem is with us in the world. And you know what? He doesn't do that nowadays because he wants us to have a natural life and live a natural life like we do, where we have free will, where it's up to us to make our own path, even though he is with us every step of the way. But yet, we could get confused and we could think Hashem isn't there with us. So we need to inculcate this message inside of us in many mitzvahs that we do. Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, a remembrance for the Exodus of Egypt. We have to remember the Exodus of Egypt so much to remember our faith in Hashem, that Hashem is with us and that he is always with us even now, even though we can't see him. But just like we did see him in Egypt, we remember this and we recount it not only on Pesach night, but we have a mitzvah to always think about it in the mitzvahs in the many mitzvot that we do. And we have to, as parents, and grandparents, we have to teach our children and grandchildren this idea of faith. This idea of faith that Hashem is with us, Hashem is always with us, just like he was with us in the Exodus of Egypt. And this, I think, is what it means. Number one, why we have a whole mitzvah on Seder night to read the Haggadah with our family and friends, and moreover, to recount the story in the ears of our children and grandchildren. And the ears means make it an emotional and uplifting, meaningful experience, something that we must really inculcate first within us in order to give over to our children and grandchildren. So I wish everyone a good Shabbos, and I hope everybody is able to read over the Parsha this week and inculcate the message of our faith in Hashem, that just like Hashem was with us in the Exodus of Egypt, so too is with us in our daily lives. Good Shabbos.